World Series just ended. Unfortunately, um, I apologize that you have to. This is part of the grieving process for you, maybe.
Yeah, I don't have my Blue Jay hat on. I should have worn my Blue Jay hat.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of want to discuss just because we wrote a piece about this about Otane at neurological point B to start the World Series. I think you said that your wife agreed that he was at point B.
She did. She did.
Okay.
Um, after man, it's all a blur now. But after it was the 18 inning game where he hit like three doubles, two home runs, or three home runs, or something crazy. And my wife the next morning was like, "Well, I guess Otani's at neurological point B."
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that's good feedback for us. That's good feedback for us, right? Because that's kind of what this piece was. Kind
Hmm.
of how he had, we call it in the learning module, it's violent, it's explosive, you'll know it when you see it. Nervous system at point B at the level of competition, right? Completely unleashed, right? And so you can see we kind of went through how he went through this stagnation where output was down, then how essentially he what he ended up doing was taking batting practice outside, which is like the first time that he had done that in a while,
Hmm.
right? And we kind of walked through kind of what happened and how he essentially entered into the World Series at neurological point B, and why is that important? Because as we continue to like refine this programming lens, like if you know your athlete as a neurological point B, it makes it quite easy for what you need to do. You need to sustain nervous system, but now you're figuring out like where are we funneling the biology, right? Are we going to funnel it into joint function? Are we going to funnel it into reactive strength? With our system, with our programming, we're doing those in conjugation. So it's not
Hmm.
really like we're going to select one or the other, right? But it's a huge leverage point because you know going into going into the World Series when it matters, this individual, this athlete's at point B. Is there anything you want to say about that?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty good.
Okay, because that's different than like what we saw, let's say like NBA playoffs, right?
Yeah.
We saw an asymmetry where probably neurological point B, definitely not biological point B, and it was systemic. So the World Series was nice to watch because realistically, what we saw wasn't biological in nature. It was Otani. If you're an Otani fan, you're watching him neurologically stagnate, right?
Yep. Hmm.
Right. And then he's able to, with I don't know what all they did. One of it was probably the batting practice outside, but then he's got a bored nervous system that now transitions from bored and stagnating to humming to now having these like historic outputs that we saw, right? And,
Hmm.
and from a they would call it like periodization, like how you want to program things in different phases. You want to be at neurological point B, peaking, so like on the uptrend, while you're also at biological point B during that time. And he did it. They did it. So this is a positive.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm shaking my head because it's quite obvious. Again, like I'm on the East Coast. I'm a Jays fan. Uh, so obviously I don't really pay attention too much to the Dodgers per se, but I mean Otani's in the highlights all the time. Um, but it was amazing to see how that all came to be. Like everything kind of like from a temporal perspective, just like was maximized at playoff time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's
And
essentially.
obviously, like we don't know because we don't know Otani and we don't know, who programs for him or anything like that. But I mean, it's very obvious that that was the plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
and that's the plan because to your point, in high performance, the best players should be the best at the most important times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so let's kind of take the time. now that people are starting to, I think we're getting feedback. People are starting to understand the difference between biological accommodation and neurological stagnation, right? They're like people are starting to understand how that interplays in our special strength definition inside out, right? So let's, how do I want to like let's use the World Series as a way to kind of go through like the different levels that we're looking at, right? So the World Series, from our perspective, is considered the level of competition,
Correct.
and Otani is considered the level of adaptation. So there's two levels,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Because
The boundaries of
even
Otani are the level of adaptation. The boundaries of the
correct.
baseball stadium or the confines of foul line to foul line and everything that exists in there is the level of competition.
Okay, so now that we know that the level of adaptation is Otani, the baseball diamond, the World Series is the level of competition. Walk me through, because now we have another idea, which is the neurological network of absolute strength, right? Because that's how you have to, if you want to program from an internal perspective, you have to understand it as a neurological network. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So can you walk us through how you used all of those, I guess, elements and then get to the conclusion? Like, how would a programmer get to the conclusion that Otani is at point B based off the World Series and nervous system?
So neurological point B is what you're specifically asking for.
Yes. How do we know as a programmer that Otani is at neurological point B?
Great question. So again, you're throwing me on the spot here. So you can hop in at any point in time because you're just as big of a part of this framework as I am. Um, let's again. I think it's important when we speak about the lens of programming and we speak about point A and point B in the roadmap and we throw these terms like level of adaptation and level of competition. The first thing that we have to reiterate is these are all small systems that exist in larger systems. So we have to, from a programming perspective, think about all of these things in a very systems oriented way. Okay. And so that means, first and foremost, that nothing is ever linear. So we have to A, accept that there will exist nonlinearities. We also have to accept that those nonlinearities are, for the most part, not predictable. So in that case, we have to exist in terms of like probabilities. And so probabilities basically means that you have some idea with some level of confidence that something will occur. Am I making sense so far?
I'm tracking.
Yeah, because we can't say if in the system's view of things, we can't say if A then B.
Right.
Because if A, then D perhaps, or M, right? And so we have to,
Mm-hmm.
we have to, but we can to some level of with some level of intelligence and some level of knowledge, be able to say if A, then most likely B,
Mm-hmm.
or if A, most likely something else. Am I kind of
I'm
so I
tracking.
think in saying all that, the way that we can create certain probabilities to occur or for us to as programmers to be able to highlight the existence of certain probabilities and lower versus higher probabilities, we have to create feedback loops. And so
Mm-hmm.
the ability to create feedbacks is extremely important because that is where you can use outcomes and findings or maybe not necessarily findings in totality, but like outcomes and then information related to those outcomes to generate the closure of certain feedbacks, understand whether they're negative or positive, and in within that you can generate certain probabilities,
Hmm.
right? And so, for example, we can say something along the lines of um, you can take any sort of metric that might be related to Otani's performance, and
Hmm.
Otani is a bit of a unicorn because the amount of metrics or outcomes that would be evaluated with him, because he's both at the top end of the offensive side of baseball, and he's at the top end of the pitching side of baseball, and those are obviously uh, two different things. But if we take the hitting side, so again, based on the comment from my wife, where she's like, "Well, I guess Otani's at neurological point B." Um, you can look at production, you can look at his performance within the level of competition, um, the metrics within that. So certain things might be, again, I'm not exactly sure what the Dodgers are using, so let me preface that, but things like swing speed, like bat speed, things like exit velocity, so ball coming off the bat, how fast is that? And there's probably certain ranges that they would expect for a player of his caliber. You can look at success rates with certain pitches and at certain times, and so on and so forth. Within the training side of things, there's obviously, and again, we don't know specifically with Otani exactly what is being looked at, but within absolute, we would obviously say that baseball is a relative strength sport. So there's a certain amount of relative strength that we would expect Otani to possess. And that would
Hmm.
be his baseline neural network, if I can say that, like his baseline. So what that means for us is if he can produce X amount of output in training that would
Hmm.
demonstrate to those that would be using this type of framework. If he could demonstrate that, then we would say that his neural network is intimately connected. He has the amount of nodes within that network that we would want. Then we would correlate that with his outputs at the level of competition, and we would say that at the level of adaptation, Otani is able to produce this much. Therefore, his neural network is this big. He's producing this much at the level of competition. Those are obviously feedback loops for the programmer to be able to say, I think this athlete is at point B. And if I can maintain these things within Otani at the level of adaptation, and he continues to perform at this level, there's a high probability that he is going to continue to perform at this level.
Hmm.
If at any point in time at the level of adaptation, Otani's nervous system begins to stagnate, maybe that means he's unable to produce a training max similar to his last training max. Maybe that means that his velocity measures are going down, whatever the case is, whatever. And we see a change in his performance at the level of competition, then we could say with a higher probability that his ability to generate power at the plate or velocity on the mound is probably going to be less. And
Hmm.
that's sort of, I guess, maybe how I would or we would look at this from an absolute perspective. I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
No, that's perfect. I think this is what I'll say. You're essentially, and this strengthens the inside out special strengths concept that we have because they have that top down behavior of the nervous system,
Yep.
right? And so like when we talk about the neural network, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so if you think about it, based off of that new definition, we can now say that like almost anything is a special strength. This is what the Soviets were trying to do, but they didn't have the model to do it. Right. That's
Okay.
why
Yeah.
like right, like that's why like they would call it special strengths, but like technically when you look through that lens, like pitching is a special strength, hitting is a
Sure.
special strength, like jumping to catch a fly ball
Taking
is
a slap shot is a special strength.
correct. Blocking is a special strength.
Yep.
Okay, this is a huge paradigm shift. But what I'm saying is, what you're saying is you don't care what the output metrics are, like velocity, miles per hour, whatever it is, all of those are outputs. And so
Sure.
what you're doing is using the level of competition to figure out output. Is it good or bad? Do we have to stimulate more? Do we have to hold? Right? We probably
Yep.
don't have to bring it down. We never would, but right, like you just take your foot off the gas, you don't hit the brake. Everybody knows this, right? So you learn that from Dale Earnhardt. So anyway, okay, so but then you're doing the same thing in the weight room because now you're seeing neural output, and you go, okay, output at level of competition is where we want it, and output is here. Maybe these things correlate. Maybe now I start to have data on the neural network of absolute strength.
hmm
Okay,
hmm
right? That's essentially what you're saying, right? But the problem is because this hasn't been done at scale, like there's all these metrics, so they don't technically like I don't want to say they don't technically, but we don't know what they're looking for output.
Correct.
And we don't know what they're training for, so we can't say that there's a linkage here. But what we are saying is in our programming practice, there is a linkage here that we can specifically tell you about in every athlete. So
And
that then
we look for it in every athlete because that gives us an indication of the probability of success at the level of competition, which is the definition of high performance.
exactly. So I think that's the I think that's the thing about the World Series. So let me say this,
hmm
okay? Because your wife brought up how Otani's at biological point B. So my wife is rooting for the Blue Jays until until it switches, until the one guy in Game 7 he goes to act like he gets hit. Seventh
Oh,
inning,
on the
seventh
Blue Jays,
inning,
you mean?
yeah,
He did. He did get hit.
he got hit the next play.
He did. Yes, he did. And to be honest, I think that the pitcher just threw at him at that point.
For sure. For sure. Okay, but this is what I want to say because now that people are starting to think about programming at the level of high performance from an internal perspective, this is what. So as soon as this happens, my wife is like, "Oh, that's she's like complaining, like, oh, he's trying to get hit, right? Next play he gets hit, and as soon as he gets hit, you can go to the film. The Dodgers pitcher is just like, you know, like
Yeah,
he's just
they
like
were going at each
he's
other. Yeah.
yeah, he's like, listen, he's like I fully intended to hit you, and I fully intend to now fight you, right? And then all the dugouts like clear, right?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Those are stimulated nervous systems at the level of competition.
Yeah.
Immediately right there, I said, okay, like there's these point in time when people will start to figure this out when they start to think at this level a little bit more. But when you understand the neural network of absolute strength and you understand the level of competition and you understand that a neural network can be stimulated or it can be stagnated or it can just be humming, right? Like what ends up happening is in those moments, it's like, dude, these things are skyrocketing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And at this point in time, this is when I'm thinking because you and I are the same position. Like we're just every it's the season, so like every week this guy blew up, that guy blew up, right? And I'm just thinking like the biology is getting ready to get taken to the edge. Like
Yeah.
this nervous system is going, listen, like it's on, right? And that's what high performance is about. It's a conjugation of like the top down, the bottom up, and then you're starting to get like, oh shit, now you're going to fall to the level of your programming,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
right? But I thought that point was really interesting because I'm thinking about it because we work with so many athletes. So I
Yeah,
know what this athlete is like. I looked at that picture and he's like, please come out to the mound. Please. Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why the Blue Jays guy, I gotta give him a credit. He must have been feeling it too, right? Because he's like, "Oh, you tried to get hit? No, let me hit you." And then as soon as he hit him, he was immediately like motherfucking that dude. And that dude just like, whoa, he's like, I'm just taking my base. And then my wife was like, I feel like that's cheating. I'm now rooting for the Dodgers.
I can't believe she switched.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that is, listen, it
Funny,
stimulated her nervous system too.
funny note on that part of the game. If the people listening to this remember that part, so we're watching it as a family. So my wife and two kids, and so that guy gets hit, and which was Jimenez, and then the bullpen's clear and the bench is clear, and my, my daughter Olivia is like just lying on the sofa watching the game, and she's like, "Oh, they're getting ready to rumble."
Yeah, even she knew.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
funny.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I think that covers the
yeah.
World
That was good.
Series.